So, hello everyone, my name is Selin. I'm a member of the OIKIS community, and today I'm gonna interview Jeroen, who will tell us an exciting story about his personal and professional experiences. So, welcome Jeroen, thanks for being with us today. And could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeroen Brons, and I'm a 55-year-old chemical engineer by background, also a father of two young adults. I am still working in the field of chemical engineering, but more at the, let's say, managerial level. And I'm based in Qatar, in the Middle East, working for Qatar Petroleum. And I'm very happy to be here today and aiming to support you with your development journey.
Yeah, thank you a lot. And I've heard that you have an exciting story about ethics and stakeholder relations to tell us today. So I would like to ask you to share it with all of us.
Okay. So the story I selected is from the very recent history. And this is a story that happened in about May this year, when through the whole world there was the COVID situation and the virus was raging everywhere, and countries were going into lockdown, and people were starting to work from home, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and governments taking measures, and well, we all know what happened in that time. But at the time itself, it was extremely uncertain for many people. And also, let's say, unsettling for people's livelihood, for people's families, for people's health, people's mental well-being. So we all remember that this was a quite dramatic period on many fronts. So the same was here in Qatar, and as it so turned out, just before they closed the borders, my wife was in Europe, and it was not possible for her anymore to return. So I was here alone in Qatar. And what happened was, because of the working from home and the very much reduced freedom to go out, and my wife not being here, I was spent basically all the time alone, and having, of course, virtual contacts. And I had one friend that I still saw on occasion, but it was a completely different environment. So that was one thing that was the situation at the time. So then, in Holland, where my parents live, my parents are well in their 80s. My parents needed some help they needed to move house. They're old people, and I had made plans to see family in the end of May, but that was all out of the window. So I had to decide what to do. Do I just write it out like most people thought they would, or do I take a decision to go to Holland and take the risk that you can't come back? So what I did, and I'll skip a few steps, but I'll come to the intermediate part in a minute. I decided to go to Holland, not knowing what consequences that would have for my, let's say, for my working, for my job here. And but I really felt inside that I had to do this. I had to see the family. I wanted to reconnect with my wife. I wanted to see my children. I wanted to help my parents. And I was building up, let's say, the confidence and also the conviction that that was the best step to take. And nobody was taking that step. There were flights going out, but the flights were empty. The company policy was that only critical journeys would be allowed. So if my parents would be dying or already deceased, then they would give permission to leave. So only then, right? And that was not the case. My parents needed some help, but they were still, let's say, they were not dying. They needed help. They're still okay, by the way. Anyway, so I decided to do that, and I decided to have a good conversation with my team and with my line manager. And I basically told him the story why I wanted to do this, and that I was convinced that that would be the best for me, for the company, for the work, for my parents, for family, and that overall that would be the best. And in this culture in the Middle East, families are very important. So he was open for the argumentation, but he was also in the reality of a big corporate organization with policies and procedures where that would not be so easily allowed. But basically, through my relationship with him, he supported it, and basically it was a joint risk at that moment that I would not be able to come back. But the consequence was indeed I was not able to come back. The situation prolonged and it was longer and longer, and ultimately I only could come back end of August, and I had to manage the in-between period. But for me, the reason I tell this story is because there was the total conviction in myself that I had to go for those family and personal and let's say emotional reasons, and that I could not let the fear of let's say maybe job loss or fear of not coming back or bad relationships or certain parts of the work not happening. I could not allow in myself that to, let's say, reduce my conviction to make this step and leave the country. And now, fast forward again, it all worked out very well. I could do some work from remote. I maintained contact with my team. And so the work didn't suffer. When I came back, everybody was happy to see me. And so I was proven right that it was the right decision to take. But the essence of this little story is that there's ethics element. I wanted to continue to do a good job, but I also wanted to be true to myself and my family and my personal values. And I did not want to compromise either of them. That's one. The second one is that I could only do this because I had a good relationship with my Qatari supervisor, who, of course, there's always a separation here between the locals, the Qataris, and the non-locals, the foreigners like myself. And but he completely respected me. He even later said to me that he saw me as as his friend. And so it was the build-up of that relationship and the integrity with which I did that gave him that made him join that risk of me going abroad and not being able to come back immediately. So the stakeholder relationship was very important in this, and yeah, I've invested a lot of energy and time over time, not for this situation, but it came out that in this specific situation that was very valuable. And I heard later from people that it was very unusual that you can have that relationship with a local to that intimate level.
Yeah.
So let me pause here to see if this story makes sense, and if this raises any questions in you.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate the story a lot. And it's a good indication that you just should follow what you're convinced of and don't let anything hold you back. But did you also experience challenges from other employees? Maybe like they were jealous that you could leave and they couldn't? Or was it all very smooth in your corporate culture?
Yeah, that was a bit of a mix. The first resistance you have is inside, right? Inside yourself. That's the voice inside you is the first one I had to overcome. In that, if you see nobody take a similar step,
Yes.
the first thought is, okay, is it actually okay, right? So that's indeed what you said. It's following the conviction. Then, when I decided not to be too open about it to direct colleagues other than the direct circle, but people that would be a little bit more remote, I didn't want to tell the whole story to them. I would rather go and manage it virtually, which was the work mode anyway, right? So I decided to be selective to whom I would tell the story, but to still build up a little bit of community support around me. So a few specific people, I said, this is what I'm doing, this is why it's important for me, and telling the story about how it lived in me actually helped indeed in the support, and in that people thought, yeah, we understand it's a good idea, and yeah, they still wouldn't dare, but okay, that's their decision. We all have to, at the end of the day, you have to take your own decision from your own personal values, and so they saw it was important for me. That didn't mean they would do it, but that's fine. That's each to his own.
Okay, that's cool. So the community support of like your selected community like pushed you, or like was a fruitful, how do you say, was very helpful in order to go abroad. So
Yeah,
that they
although
understood your values.
it was helpful, but it was I noticed that when I started to share it with a few people, it was already so firm in myself that I didn't necessarily need their support anymore.
Okay.
It was nice that they would support it, but it didn't propel me further than I had already done myself.
Okay, cool. And once you've been to Holland, did you ever feel doubts about your decision, or
Never.
no?
No,
Okay.
I did. In the beginning, I took a lot of leave. I had a lot of leave days to clear, so that was like a whole month. And then after that, the leave was finished. But I always kept in contact with the team, with the supervisor. I always maintained that integrity of, okay, I may be here, I may be on leave, I may be remote, but there are still things going on. People depend on my input, so I maintained that level of connection. That's another element that I would say. Some people make quite a sharp demarcation between private and work, but when it is a critical situation, I would recommend not to do that, because people, also work as a community. People depend on each other, not only practically for the work, but also because it's like a family, like a community. And so I decided to continue that connection actively with people that were in my direct environment and who were here in this country here in the Middle East, in the same uncertainty, right? But and not knowing where things would go.
Okay. Wow. So thank you for your awesome story. And if you could wrap it up in one key message, what would it be?
Okay. I would say be very clear for yourself what your personal values are, your personal, I would call it, will haves and won't haves. So what will you do in your life? What will you accept in terms of dynamic, and what do you say no to? Be very clear to that and be true to that, and not be fearful of don't dilute your values or your will have and won't haves because of a fear element.
Okay. Cool. And do you have one practice or exercise how to find out about our personal values, how to prioritize them, and how to be, how to say, honest with ourselves and not let fear interfere?
A personal practice. Well, a practice that I think is useful in this is to have from time to time, let's say, a bit of pause from the daily hectic environment and have a sort of a reflective time of what are actually your personal values, what are the things you want to be true to, whether it's something you want to include in your personal values or want to deliberately exclude. Have from time to time, write them down and see if they're still fresh, see if they're active, see if you're indeed true to them yourself. Tell yourself the stories about it. So it's like a reflective practice that I do from time to time, and that helps you grow your inner compass basically over time.
Okay, cool. Okay, so thank you very much for the interview. And it's going to be shared with an interested local hub somewhere around the world in order to inspire students by your leadership story. I really appreciate that you participated in Next Gen Lead, helped to propel the program. And so thank you for your time. Have
You're
a nice
welcome.
day.
And good luck with your program and with your journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you.